Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to share the profound and inspiring story of Prophet Nuh, Noah in English, a story that has echoed through time in the Quran and continues to teach us invaluable lessons about faith, obedience, patience, and trust in God. Nuh was a prophet, sent by God to a people who had fallen into great wrong. They had forgotten the one true God and instead worshipped idols, things made by human hands. It was a world filled with injustice and corruption. Can you imagine how difficult it must have been to stand up and tell people their ways were wrong? Yet, Noah devoted his entire life to calling them back to God's guidance. He preached for hundreds of years, nearly a millennium according to some traditions, patiently urging his people to abandon their false gods and embrace the oneness of God. But very few listened. Most mocked him, ignored his words, or even became hostile. Despite this rejection, Noah never lost hope. His faith was unshakable, and his mission remained clear. He trusted God completely, knowing that only God's judgment would eventually prevail. One day, after years of warning, God revealed to Noah that a great flood would cleanse the earth of its corruption. The flood wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a divine test and punishment for the people's stubborn refusal to change. God commanded Noah to build a massive ark, a huge ship, despite the fact that the land around was dry. People laughed at him, calling him mad for building a boat where there was no water. But Noah obeyed God's instructions without hesitation. He worked diligently, hammering wood and constructing the ark, trusting God's plan completely. This act of obedience is a powerful lesson. True faith means acting on God's commands, even when others don't see or understand. The ark was to hold Noah, his followers who believed in God, and pairs of every kind of animal, so life would continue after the flood. When the rains began, they weren't a gentle drizzle. They poured down relentlessly. Waters gushed from the depths of the earth, flooding valleys and mountains alike. The flood covered everything, washing away all those who had refused to listen. Inside the ark, however, Noah, his family, the believers, and the animals were safe, floating above the chaos. This ark became a symbol of God's mercy towards those who follow him, and his justice toward those who turn away. The ark finally came to rest on a mountain called Judah, after the waters receded and God called the earth to swallow the water back again. It's important to remember that the story of Noah is not just about a flood or a boat. It is a story about faith, patience, and trusting God's timing and wisdom, even in the face of overwhelming hardship. The Quran beautifully sums up this story in one verse that highlights Noah's obedience. "And construct the ship under our observation and our inspiration, and do not address me concerning those who have wronged. Indeed, they are to be drowned." Surah Hud, verse 37. And after the flood, the ark resting on Mount Judah, shows that with God's mercy, new beginnings are always possible. Noah's story also teaches us that even the longest and hardest journeys have an end. His unwavering faith and perseverance eventually led to salvation for those who believed. So, what can we learn today from this story? Whether you face rejection for your beliefs, challenges that seem never-ending, or moments when hope feels distant, remember the patience of Noah and trust in God. Trust that God's plan, as hard as it may be to understand, is always perfect. And just like God saved Noah and the believers through the ark, He can guide us through our own storms, if we hold on to faith and obedience. Thank you for listening to the story of Prophet Noah and the ark. Would you like me to briefly compare the story of Noah in the Bible and the Quran in a future video? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay patient, keep your faith strong, and put your trust in God.